Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's e-commerce espresso. If this is your first time joining us, then welcome to the webinar that is shorter than your coffee break. To keep these episodes as quick and insightful as possible, we won't be holding a live Q&A at the end, but if you have any questions you'd like to put to LoyaltyLion or to today's speaker, then please do tweet us at LoyaltyLionHQ using the hashtag e-commerce espresso, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So let's jump straight in before our coffees get cold. Today, I'm joined by Iris from BigCommerce. Iris, welcome. Could you tell us a bit more about yourself and about BigCommerce?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be taking part in the session today. So my name is Iris Schiefer. I am BigCommerce's Strategic Partnerships Manager for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So the majority of my role focuses on building out and nurturing BigCommerce's relationships with technology partners like LoyaltyLion to ensure our merchants have access to best-of-breed solutions for all their e-commerce needs. So for the people on the line who might not be familiar with BigCommerce, BigCommerce is an e-commerce platform provider suitable for merchants at any stage of their growth journey. And our model for success is built on a principle we call open SaaS. So we're a fully hosted multi-tenant platform providing merchants with all the benefits of cloud-based technologies like security and scalability, but at the same time, we offer a choice for openness through our API structure. So 90% of the platform is exposed to developers, so it's really easy to build new features and integrations on top of that secure base. So essentially, we're kind of providing that best of both worlds between cloud-based and open source e-commerce technologies.
Fantastic. Thanks, Iris. Well, it's great to have you on board, and we're really excited to have a platform as one of our partners here as well. So let's get stuck in with our first question. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this first one. So 2020 has been one of the most unpredictable years we could have seen in e-commerce. As the peak period approaches, what's your advice for merchants who are starting to plan their Q4 strategy?
Yeah, so I think we could probably dedicate like a whole hour-long webinar to this.
I think you're right.
There's just so much to discuss, right? And I think for me, if there's one sort of overarching strategic theme, not just for the holiday season, but going forward in general, it's adaptability. It's that ability to stay flexible. I mean, the whole global economy has just been in a constant state of flux over the last few months. And that's in general, not just in retail, right? And that's meant that consumers are having to rapidly adapt their behaviors, and they're expecting companies to kind of go on that journey along with them. So we can't just be thinking about this in terms of traditional forecasting and 1 and 5 year plans. Retailers really have to be able to pivot their approach at a moment's notice. So, I mean, I definitely think there's some long-term strategic considerations that retailers should be rolling into their broader business strategy, not just for Q4, but addressing those behavioral changes that have been happening for a while rather than just as a result of the pandemic. And I know this question is specifically around Q4 2020, but as we're already in October, this will probably be more forward-looking, but there's certainly still a few quick wins that you can implement in the next few weeks before the Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend, and we can definitely talk about that too. If I were to boil this down to just a few top priorities, it would probably be customer acquisition and channel strategy, SEO, and then looking at the checkout experience as well. And I think if we think about this in terms of the customer journey, the first step is obviously, how do I get new customers onto my site, right? And first and foremost, it's important to understand where those customers typically come from. I'd say mine your analytics and insights to understand what your most successful sales channels are and double down your marketing efforts there. At the same time, think about avenues you perhaps haven't explored in terms of marketplaces or social commerce through Facebook and Instagram that could expose you to those new target customers. Don't just sort of rely on 1 or 2 channels and hope that's going to carry you through because you know it has up until now. I definitely recommend reviewing your mobile strategy as part of the channel assessment. I believe I read that sort of like almost 70% of all Black Friday purchases were made on a mobile device last year. And I mean, that's only going to increase further across all demographics, right? I mean, also like in terms of like the mobile side, one big mistake that I see retailers doing is just using a stripped down version of their desktop site for mobile. And I mean, that's just not going to cut the mustard, right? We know that. Obviously, you might need to simplify and reorganize the content, but you do need to be providing that same great experience on mobile as on desktop, or you're going to risk losing those customers to a competitor who is doing that. Mm-hmm. Also look at page load speeds. Are the images optimized for mobile as well? The last piece on the channel side is I'd consider website localization for your target expansion markets as well. And when I say localization, I mean this in terms of truly creating a native experience in terms of local language nuances, currencies, local payment methods, not just, you know, a direct translation of your website, because you can miss a lot of opportunities there. So in terms of quick wins for new traffic, there are still some, there's still some time to make some last minute improvements in terms of search relevancy or SEO strategy. So I'd say focus on Black Friday, Cyber Monday specific keywords, and cleaning up your product catalog, making sure those keywords and URLs are optimized for search rankings, making sure images are high quality, that they're SEO friendly. Again, when you're thinking about those sort of title tags and meta descriptions and other aspects of SEO, consider this from a mobile user perspective as well. And last but certainly not least on my list is the checkout experience. And there's a lot that you can do here, both long and short term. Already discussed having a variety of payment options available and making sure that these are localized to your key markets as well. Look at the checkout flow and see how you might be able to consolidate some of those steps. I always like to see a checkout flow indicator to show where I am in that checkout process, because customers can lose interest if you know there's sort of like another 5 steps to go. I'd also recommend offering a guest checkout option and be upfront about any shipping costs and delivery times. If you ship a lot internationally, you might want to consider using a cross-border solution to optimize that flow as well. And I mean, I know I've talked an awful lot on these points already, but that's just kind of like a high-level overview. Those are kind of the top things that come to mind for me when I think about some of the improvements that retailers can make today.
I think, yeah, I love that you're looking at it in 2 ways, kind of the longer term approach and the immediate impact, because actually you're exactly right. Everything that you do in a short term can also have a long term impact too. And I think over the last few months, we've seen a lot of people have to do some quite urgent work on their infrastructure because, you know, there's been a sudden change in demand. There's some people who've had this big boom. And there's a really great opportunity to embed some of those changes and make them more effective permanently. And then, you know, there's the way that those things then play into a longer term strategy. So you talked a lot about mobile. Well, you know, great mobile experience feeds your SEO. So the two then start to work together. And couldn't agree more on the checkout side of things. I think, you know, that is where you will lose people, and people remember their checkout experience as well. It's until they get the product in their hands, it's the last time that they remember interacting with you. And if they, you know, if it's not a good experience, then you will lose them to somewhere else that has a better one. And the competition is so fierce at any time, but particularly in Q4. So I couldn't agree more. I think those immediate tweaks will put you in a really prime position over the next few months, but certainly a good idea to be thinking of them far longer term as well.
Exactly. I think there's always so much focus on, you know, like, how do I attract new customers? You know, how do I market out? How do I like get my brand out there? And obviously that is important, right? But it's like, it's not like you've got them as soon as they get on the site, or even once they've added products to basket. In fact, like a lot of the dropout is at the checkout. So it's really about that, looking at that user journey throughout, and making sure that you're optimizing for conversion there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, even once they've shopped once, you haven't necessarily got them. You might have got them through to checkout, but you know, they'll be a lot more valuable if you can bring them back again. So yeah, fantastic. So that's brilliant advice. Thank you. Let's move on to our second question. So we've touched on this already, but the e-commerce market has experienced huge growth recently. What are your top tips for re-engaging customers before the seasonal shopping period? So new customers that you've managed to acquire over the last few months, how do you make sure they come back to you over the seasonal shopping period?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question. And I'm sure this is not really like news for a lot of people, but in the last few months, we've really kind of seen the reiterated need for creating a personalized experience across the customer journey. So obviously we've already talked about sort of, you know, getting the customer to the checkout, but it's like, how do you make sure that they keep coming back and that they purchase from you again? So my advice here would be, if you haven't already, make sure that you're segmenting your consumer base into different target groups, because the content that might draw one consumer back to your site and to make another purchase might be completely ignored by someone else. And there's no one set of segmentation that's going to work for all businesses, right? And I guess to clarify what I mean when I say segmentation, I don't mean this in terms of demographics based on data like age or location. I mean, those things are important, but I'm more talking about groups of customers that are displaying certain behaviors or meeting a particular set of conditions at a particular time. So this is going to constantly change, right? So this could be VIP customers who've bought from you X number of times before. It could be customers who haven't purchased anything in more than 6 months, or consumers who only tend to buy from one part of your catalog, right? It really depends on the needs of your business and what's in your database. So if you've already done this, that's amazing, but do keep reviewing these segments on a regular basis to make sure that they're still relevant before you send out those Black Friday campaigns. If you have one, this is definitely a good time to reach out to your customer success or account manager at your email marketing software provider to get tips on how to segment and what's going to resonate with that base, because you know this is what they do every day. They can definitely give you some advice there. And I mean, it might be the case that email isn't the best medium of communication for some of these customer segments, right? Some people are going to be more responsive if they're receiving promotions by text or WhatsApp or via social media. And you can base this on your existing data and methodologies and what's worked for you in the past, but you know, don't be afraid to experiment and play around a little bit and try some new approaches too.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. I couldn't agree more with the idea of the segmentation and re-engaging people in different ways as the sales come up. I think, you know, we know that people's existing customers are their most valuable, but some of them, as you say, won't have shopped with them for perhaps since last Black Friday, and who knows? So taking the time to kind of break those groups apart and address them differently ahead of the sales is super important. To your point around email, we actually just got some consumer research back, which told us that there's only 25% of consumers who say they will not open emails from retail brands as the sales approach. So there's a huge opportunity to be engaging people through that channel. People are receptive to those messages. Also, we found that 33% of people are far more likely to leave reviews during the sales season. So I think you're absolutely right. There's a huge opportunity for encouraging advocacy and getting those messages out and re-engaging those people, and then using that to hopefully bring you a little bit more traffic as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually a really good point, because, you know, I mean, we talked about re-engaging customers, specifically bringing them back for the Black Friday sales. But what's even more important is, as you say, keeping those new and returning customers engaged after the holiday sales end. And I think this kind of comes back to that personalization piece that we talked about, because, you know, consumers want you to address them with content that's relevant on a functional level, but they also want to feel valued, and they want to have that sense of connection with the brand. And, you know, really thinking about what that post-purchase journey looks like for the consumer as well, like what customer service channels are available, what hours are they available, what does the returns process look like, and, you know, how are you promoting further content to those consumers in a meaningful way. And I think that sort of deeper level of engagement, it's what's going to increase the lifetime value of the customer for the retailer, but also turn them into those sort of brand advocates who can bring in new audience for you via referrals and positive reviews. And, you know, that's kind of where LoyaltyLion comes in as well, in terms of offering those referral awards and building that loyalty program and building that brand advocacy, right?
Yeah, completely. And I think it's interesting what you say about the ongoing content piece as well, purely because we've seen people do it so well in the last few months. Yeah. The content that's been going out into, people have been really building communities around it, and it's such a different range of content. It works for so many different people. So you've got the really functional stuff, as you say. You know, I've seen far more FAQs around things like, okay, how is my delivery going to be affected? How are delivery times going to change? What is the returns policy now? Everything's different. You know, there's great functional content like that, but there's also really useful content. Okay, I can't get into a shop and see a real stylist or talk to a shop assistant. So a virtual styling session or a guide to how to buy things, I think and then actually just a lot of really fun stuff like recipes or playlists, or, I think we've really seen brands step up on the content side. And it has been quite well segmented and personalized. So you have felt like you're part of a club, but B, a brand's kind of talking to you and helping you through what's been a potentially difficult time for people. So,
yeah, exactly. It's like they know what's important to you. They know like what your values are.
Yeah, I think that's a real positive to come out of the last few months, really. It's fantastic. So on to our third and final question. What do you think has been the biggest learning within the e-commerce industry from recent events, particularly around the customer loyalty area that we discussed?
Yeah, I think we've kind of touched on this already, but as I say, I think this whole year has just really reiterated the importance of loyalty programs as part of a retailer's retention strategy for me. And the trend that I see, and I'm sure that LoyaltyLion is seeing as well, is that shift away from kind of a simple point scheme to retailers actually using loyalty programs as a way to get to know their customers better and offer them a more kind of personalized service and customer experience. And part of that shift, I think, has been towards more sort of lifestyle-based rewards, like premium delivery options for VIP customers, like Amazon Prime does, for example, or birthday gifts, invites to exclusive in-store events. I mean, you mentioned like the virtual styling, stuff like that, just that different level of engagement. One example that I really loved from a LoyaltyLion customer was you did a case study with Ren Skincare, I believe, and kind of looking at their focus as a brand on sustainability and the clean credits reward system. And I think what they've done, it really shows sort of an understanding of what's important to their consumer base, usually kind of like ethically conscious, and B, also encourages engagement with the brand at different touch points to create that deeper relationship. So, it really comes down to understanding your customers' core values and what motivates them.
I couldn't agree more. It's actually a trend we pulled out right at the beginning of the year in our 2020 trends sort of predictions. And it's definitely something we've seen come through, the kind of increasing conscious consumerism and customers wanting to buy from brands that align with them and share their beliefs and values. And you're exactly right. We've seen that trickle down into the rewards, and we're seeing some brilliant things. We've got a dog food brand who gives you belly rubs instead of points, which you can then use to donate to a dog shelter or to give booties to dogs and things like that. Or you've got people like Pacifica Beauty who are actually giving you points each time that you recycle mascara packaging and things like that. So people feel like they're aligned with the brands that they're buying from. And then on the flip side, as you say, those experiential rewards, access to secret sales or new product lines, getting testers ahead of other customers, all those kind of things that make people feel really special and make them feel like they're part of a bigger community. I think that's the way you make people feel like individuals, and that's how you get those really personalized experiences that are so important.
Exactly. And I think a lot of that, it's been harder and harder this year, right? With not being able to have as much, face-to-face time with those customers. So, brands really have to get creative in terms of, creating that engagement in an online environment. And that can be tricky. But when you get it right, then, you're just off on a different tangent, right?
Completely. And I'm really excited. I think we've seen people evolve it a lot this year. I can't wait to see where they go next with it. People are getting really creative. It's really great to see.
Yeah, onwards and upwards.
Exactly. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Iris. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for, this e-commerce espresso. As always, we'll be sharing the on-demand recording, so don't worry if you miss anything along the way. I'd like to say one more big thank you to today's guest, Iris, for some really valuable insights. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Fiona.
Remember, if you have any questions for either BigCommerce or LoyaltyLion, you can tweet us using the hashtag Ecommerce Espresso or find us on LinkedIn. We'll look forward to seeing you all online again soon.
Hi everyone, it's Molly here from LoyaltyLion. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Ecommerce Espresso. The time to be ready for the seasonal shopping period is here. To get you prepped, I've been creating the Peak 2020 pack, covering everything you need for Q4 success. It includes an infographic containing new consumer insights around the holidays, a quick guide full of tips and strategies, and the Peak 2020 score sheet to double check you've not missed any tricks. Download the pack for free at loyaltylion.com/peak2020. I hope to see you online again soon.